Okay, my book was The House of Seven Gables by Nathaniel Hawthorne, and this is the summary. I'll just start from the beginning. Our setting is Salem, Massachusetts in the 1600s, the beginning of the book. And our focus is on Matthew Mall. And Matthew Mall is a very important character, but he's not a very prevalent character. Matthew Mall owns this little shack in Salem, Massachusetts, in the midst of a rapidly growing and kind of beautiful community, and he just has this worn down old house, and so everybody's telling him to sell it and everything, and the land that the shack is on is owned by a man named Colonel Pynchon, and Colonel Pynchon is a wealthy man. He's kind of a jerk, but Matthew Mall will sell his land, and so surprisingly Matthew Mall gets hung for witchcraft, and Colonel Pynchon most likely had some pull in getting him hung. Now Matthew Mall, from the stand, curses the family, the Pynchon family, and the land and any future house that would be there. Colonel Pynchon isn't scared by this. Okay, so he tears down the shack and he builds this house of 7 gables, which is 7 peaks. A gable is a peak. And so the peaks went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 gables. It was a very odd looking house, but it was very beautiful in the time. It was a mansion. And remember, now it's cursed because Matthew Mall did that. And so Colonel Pynchon and the housewarming party is found dead in his study. Now this is a huge turning point in the story, and so they're looking at his will, and they find this thing that states about a document that is the inheritance of the whole Pynchon family, with money, land, everything. It's the granddaddy of them all for inheritances, so to speak. And so but no one can find it. And so the Pynchon family, for basically the rest of their lives, are looking for this inheritance. Clifford Pynchon is thrown in prison for allegedly killing his uncle, Colonel Pynchon. And then there's a long description thing about of the bad luck the Pynchons have, and how the house just is wearing down and rotting away. And then we get to a woman named Hephzibah Pynchon, and she's a grumpy old tough lady, but she's kind-hearted. She's just kind of the classic old grumpy lady, and she's starving because she's cursed and the house isn't doing anything, and so she opens a store in the house, and it's hard to maintain, and so her cousin Phoebe Pynchon comes to live with her, and they kind of take care of the house. They have a neighbor named Hellgrove who comes and helps as well. Clifford comes back from 30 years in prison for killing Colonel Pynchon, and he's broken down. He was a great man to begin before then, and then prison kind of wore him out. Phoebe and Hephzibah kind of nurse him back to health. I mean, not to health, but to his normal self. And Judge Jaffrey Pynchon comes to try to talk to Clifford. And there's a conspiracy about maybe if the judge had some influence on Clifford going to jail. So Clifford doesn't want to talk to him. Hephzibah doesn't let him in, and that's a really weird point in the story. Life goes on. There's a little love connection between Hellgrove and Phoebe. And then Hellgrove tells Phoebe about this story of hundreds of years earlier, kind of right. This is now in the 1800s, but hundreds of years earlier, kind of right after Matthew Mall's death and Colonel Pynchon's death. And they talk, Hellgrove tells a story of a guy named Gervase Pynchon finding Matthew Mall the Third, is what I call him. They don't call him the Third, but it makes sense to me because Matthew Mall was the one who cursed everybody. He had a son, Matthew Mall the Second, and then Matthew Mall the Second had Matthew Mall the Third. That's what I call him, just to keep them straight. Summons Matthew Mall III to try to figure out where this money is. And so Matthew Mall III, after a lot of deliberation, because he's basically betraying his his family, hypnotizes Alice Pynchon, Gervais's daughter, to summon Colonel Pynchon, Matthew Mall I, and Matthew Mall II. He hypnotizes them and he gets in contact with these spirits. The two Malls won't let Pynchon tell Matthew Mall III where the money is, so he stops talking to him. Now, after he's done talking to him, he realizes that Alice is still hypnotized, so he takes advantage of her, does a lot of jerk stuff to her, and he ends up forcing her to make them get married, which was weird. And anyway, Alice wakes up right before they get married. She runs away. It's cold. She runs through the snow, spends days out there. She gets pneumonia and dies. Weird. Anyway, Hellgrove realizes while he's telling Phoebe this story that he hypnotized her. But he's a good man, he's a proud man, and he wakes her up. He doesn't take advantage of her. It was a big point. There was a lot of suspense. Judge Pynchon comes back because Clifford apparently killed Colonel Pynchon, so he must know where the money is. And Judge Pynchon threatens to throw Clifford into an insane asylum if he doesn't tell him. And that's all I'm going to tell you, because that would ruin the ending. Themes within this story is to be a good person. Basically, that's the only thing I could find. There weren't a lot of themes, but that was my main one, is that one thing, Hellgrove was a really good man in being proud, having a good sense of pride and integrity, to not take advantage of Phoebe when she was hypnotized. Matthew Mall III was a horrible man in doing what he did to Alice Pynchon. Judge Pynchon was being horrible to Clifford Pynchon by using his power to threaten to throw Clifford in an insane asylum. It was just be a good person. Symbolism within the book, the main symbol was the house. The house kind of, to me, represented just the lives of the people who lived in it, because the house was cursed, the people were cursed, and the house was rotting away, and so were the people's lives. The ways the author connected to the book was he lived in the house. There is a house of 7 Gables in Salem, Massachusetts, and Nathaniel Hawthorne lived there for a while. It's told in third person, and the way I connected with the book, let me first start off with reading level. I'd honestly have to say college level. I mean, I got through it. I'm not the strongest reader, but it's Old English, not that easy to understand. I mean, if that's your thing, then this is the perfect book for you. But I couldn't understand it that well. It took a lot of energy to understand it. There was a lot of rereading. Yeah, I honestly did not like this book at all. Just Old English. I hate it. I hate it with a fiery passion. So yeah, I would not recommend this book. Impact this book had on the world. Nathaniel Hawthorne didn't win any awards for any of his books, even though that 2 of them now are classics, and so there wasn't that big of an impact on the world. The way I connect to the book is that this summer I went out east for vacation, and we went to Salem, Massachusetts for part of the trip to learn about the Salem witch trials. We saw in a brochure about Nathaniel Hawthorne's house, and my whole family are avid readers, so we knew who Nathaniel Hawthorne was, and so we visited his house, and it turned out that there was this house of 7 Gables right next to his house. They put them there. They weren't always just there, but they put them together there to correlate with each other and make it convenient. But I had no idea what the House of Seven Gables was to begin with, and I went in there, we took a tour, and it was interesting to compare the house from when I took the tour with the house in the book, and they're spot on. I mean, there's a passageway that they reference in the book of just this small little passageway that leads up to places. I mean, it's not a huge deal, but it's in there, and I've walked through that passageway. It's really neat, but honestly, the book kind of ruined my experience with the house, because the coolest thing about the house was that there was a book written about it, and the book was bad in my mind, so that kind of ruined my thoughts on the house. But anyway, if Old English is for you, read the book. If you're like me and hate Old English, do not read it. I mean, this made me not want to read The Scarlet Letter, because it's written by Nathaniel Hawthorne. So, thank you for watching my video.